2020 meeting of the Seward Planning and Zoning Commission. Commissioner Charbonneau, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And that takes us to roll call, please.
DeMoss,
Here.
Ambrosiani,
here.
Charbonneau,
Here.
Commissioner Hatfield is excused. Cease,
Here.
Swan,
Here.
and Chair Eklund.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Number 4, tonight, citizens' comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. And those who have signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. Time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker and 36 minutes total time for this agenda item. Do we have anyone signed in?
Madam Chair, there's no one signed in.
At this time, I will open it to the public if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak on any item other than those under our public hearing section. Councilmember Baclan. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Tony Baclan, Inside City Limits. I just want to thank the Commission's work at the last work session for the walkable murals. I appreciate everyone spending their time to come and discuss that topic, and I just want to thank you very much. I also want to welcome Commissioner DeMoss on her first official meeting, and I wish her the best of luck, and I think she's going to do an amazing job on the Commission, and I thank her for stepping up for her community and representing it well, and being one of our community leaders here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on an item? Seeing and hearing no one, I'll close the, is this on a public hearing item or?
I just want to make known that I'm here tonight, Charles McEldown.
Okay. You're under public hearing, I believe, Charles, if we have questions at that time. Anyone else? Seeing and hearing no one, I'll close public hearing, and takes us to number 5, approval of agenda and consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the agenda and this consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Swan, second by Charbonneau. And any discussion on the agenda or consent agenda?
Yes.
Commissioner Swan.
I would like to add in under new business, I think it's the proper place, a discussion about what we need to do to get a gold pan to our exiting commissioner.
All right.
I guess that could go under
D,
D.
is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second.
Second by Charbonneau. Any discussion? Administration, do we have any input on exiting commissioners' process?
Yeah, it just needs to be brought forward by the commission as a discussion item, and then we can.
Okay, thank you. Any objection to unanimous consent on adding that to the agenda? Seeing and hearing no objection, that is item 9D. Is there any other additions to the agenda at this time?
Yeah, I think we want to.
Commissioner Swan?
Sorry. I think we want to add in, and probably be E, is a discussion to requesting staff to move forward on the beach restoration program.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by, motion by Swan, second by DeMoss. Any discussion on that addition? Seeing and hearing no discussion, any objection to unanimous consent on this addition? Okay, and that is approved as item 9E. Any other items? I just have one housekeeping, and I should have brought it up before, but in our minutes, which are on the consent agenda, I don't know if I have to pull them to add this. Okay, so I'd like to pull the minutes from the consent agenda.
Is that to be seconded or just pulled?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion by Eklund, second by Swan. And any discussion on that? We'll get to it, I guess, under 9C. Any other discussions on agenda or consent agenda? Is there any objection to the main motion? Seeing and hearing no no objection, the motion to approve agenda and consent agenda is unanimous. And then that takes the only consent agenda item off of our list. That takes us to 6 special reports and presentations. City Administration Report. Ms. Wild.
Madam Chair, I'm going to keep my report short tonight, just because I'm going to have Andy run the meeting for most of the evening. I just wanted to give all of the commissioners, first, I want to say that these were bought with my funds, not any city funds. But we attended the planning conference for the Alaska Planning Conference, and they sold these mugs to help with scholarships for future classes. So because we're in the renewable reuse, everybody gets a mug.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They are hand painted.
They are hand painted by one of the planners from Anchorage. And I feel that we're moving in the direction to get rid of our paper and everything else, so I wanted to give all of you that. And then just to give a little heads up that we have had our offer for planner accepted, and a new planner, Eric Wolski, will be starting on April 6th. So we are very, very excited about that. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Ask a question.
Well,
Let me see if Planner Bacon has anything to add, since he's now going to be running the meeting. Did you have anything to add to the administration report?
yes, it'll segue into our next item, reporting on the planning conference. I just want to share about a couple of the sessions that I attended at the planning conference. One of the sessions included a presentation on coastal hazard mapping and monitoring, which discussed challenges communities are facing with erosion. They mainly profiled towns in western and northern Alaska that are really facing some serious problems with erosion. But the agency that put it on is the State Agency of Geophysical and Geotechnical Studies. Let's say that's close enough. They're gathering data statewide, and so I think that one of the things that I noticed was that they did not have Seward marked on their map of a place in Alaska that experiences erosion for whatever reason. So we're going to work with them to provide them with whatever information they might need. They do a lot of data collection, and it was a very good presentation. Another one that I attended was the City of Juneau, talking about their approach to managing tourism through a voluntary program some of you may have heard of. It's called Tourism Best Management Practices. They've been doing this for, over 10 years now. And it's voluntary. It was written by members of the community, Chamber of Commerce members, and all the businesses participated on a voluntary basis. And they reported having it make a positive impact on the communities. If they needed it, they put it into place. They say it's working out, so it was great to hear about that. And that is all I got. I could talk more and more about it, but I won't.
Thank you. Commissioner Ambrosiani, you had a question for administration?
I just wonder if, Jackie, if you could tell us a little bit about the incoming planner, a little background possibly?
Yeah, so Eric is coming from the lower 48, and he has family that's here in Alaska, but he has a master's in urban planning and a huge GIS background, which is, the direction we're moving, and it's really great to have somebody that not only knows it, but trains it. So I think he's going to bring a really great balance to the table for our three-legged stool, as people keep referring us to in our department.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us to 6B, other reports, announcements, and presentations. And I see that staff has added planning conference reports from the attendees. This was the State Alaska Planning Association Conference held in Anchorage a couple weekends and week ago. I went as a member of the Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Commission, and they paid for me to go for one day. The city paid for Commissioner Swan and Commissioner Charbonneau to attend 3 days, the week?
It was 3 days.
3 days? So I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Swan for a short report.
All right, well, it's going to be kind of short. I have notes at home of some things that were really important, but one of the things, and it's kind of particular for this meeting tonight, it had to do with, they had a whole section on variances and where they should be used and how they should be used. And that was very educational in the fact that, basically, when you're putting in a variance, there has to be something special about that piece of property that makes the typical building in the area, or the typical type of building that's in the area, equivalent building in the area, that it can't be done with something with the property that makes it the property, of course, sort of non-conforming. And so the only way you can safely or economically build on a property is with a variance. And really, there was like truly no other exceptions to having a variance. And that's been backed up pretty heavily in court throughout Alaska. So that was one of the things. There was, I need my notes.
Okay.
But what I can say is that's the second conference I've gone to, and I'm going to make it a point that every year that while I'm on this board, that if I can go, because there were so many things that I picked up by talking with the other areas, the problems they're having. I've got some things, okay, one of the other things I talked about was in Anchorage, what they do is when somebody has brought a resolution to us, that person, what they do is have that person available throughout our discussion. So they're almost like, so we can ask them, instead of trying to, drop our standard policy of discussion, bring them in so that anytime we have a question or something that needs to be clarified. And, that kind of works all the way up, always the same. So instead of having someone, that's bringing a resolution before us, instead of having them stay in the audience, they kind of come up to the podium and they're available to that we can just ask them questions on a very easy basis. And that was something that I wanted to bring forward at a later date to see if we could change our policy on that, because it just made a lot of sense. And anyway, I'll try and bring something up. I'll get my notes.
Commissioner Charbonneau.
I just wanted to say that it was very useful, as well as Tom and Andy. We went to a number of breakout meetings. I went with Andy to the coastal hazard mapping meeting, and also when our ship comes in, which deals with cruise ships and kind of creating an environment that works for the tourists and the residents, and creating a more pleasant environment for everybody in a city with having to deal with large cruise ships dropping a lot of people at one time. I also went to one on public notices and a better way to get them out, so that we're not only referring to the post office and the newspaper. We had some presentations by a lady who works for a company out of Denver, and they put together it goes on your website, and people are able to log in or click on it and find more information faster. And it was really pretty interesting.
And I attended on Sunday, and we had a lawyer give us a background on zoning. What was the big long discussion? It was a very long, lengthy discussion.
Was that on the project?
On Sunday, yeah, Sunday. the lawyer. It was kind of
right.
a long, drawn-out one. But then we did some mock meetings, and it was interesting. The one thing that I liked was that the applicants spoke, or their representative spoke, and then the public hearing was held, and then the applicants had an opportunity for a rebuttal, which I think some things are brought up during public hearing time that the applicant can address, or and that might be the time that then they can stay up there for the discussion process. So some things we might want to consider changing in our rules of procedure. So, thank you, Commissioners, for your addition, and that moves us on to item 7, public hearing. We do not have any unfinished business that requires a public hearing. Under B, new business items requiring a public hearing, the comments will be limited to 5 minutes, and those who have signed in will have the first opportunity to speak. Number 1, Resolution 2020-03 is granting a variance from the Seward City Code 1510-222, development requirements table to Charles McEldowney, permitting an exception to the zoning code to allow a 5-foot side yard setback to a street on Lot 20, Block 38, original town site, Seward, 601 4th Avenue, within the Office Residential Zoning District. Staff report, please.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, before you tonight is an application submitted by Charles McEldowney for a variance to allow a 5-foot side yard setback adjacent to a street on Lot 20, Block 38, in Office Residential Zoning District, where according to Table 1510-222 development requirements, the required side yard setback adjacent to a street is listed at 10 feet. The applicant requested this variance to expand the buildable envelope on their lot from a 15-foot to a 20-foot width. The property is currently developed with a 24-foot wide single-family house that encroaches into the Monroe Street right-of-way and the alley right-of-way as well. The house was constructed in 1935 prior to the adoption of the zoning code, and it's considered a legal non-conforming structure. An as-built survey obtained by the property owner is what revealed that the house is encroaching into these rights-of-way. The subject property is a 30 by 100-foot original town site lot. The owner has stated that he would like to build a new single-family house on the property. The setbacks listed for the property would be 20 feet for the front yard, 10 feet side yard to A Street, 5-foot side to the alley, and 5-foot side to the interior lot line, leaving a 15-foot wide by 75-foot long building envelope on this lot. The owner is requesting this variance in order to be able to construct a small single-family residence that's more proportional in length to width ratio as other houses in the neighborhood. The surrounding properties to the north, east, and west are zoned office residential and include single-family homes. The property to the south across A Street is zoned institutional, and it's the Avtech Culinary Academy, dorms, gym, and student services. Takes up the
Excuse
whole
me,
block.
is it A Street or Monroe Street?
I'm sorry, it's Monroe Street.
Okay, I just, you need, yeah.
That's twice now, I'm sorry, yeah, it's
That's
definitely
okay.
Monroe Street,
All
Cross
right.
Street. Thank you. Yeah. Staff has reviewed the rezoning application, and no objections were reported. Public notice was provided in accordance with Seward City Code requirements, and one public comment objecting to the variance request was received, and it's printed in the meeting packet. The applicant is present at the meeting and available to answer any questions the commission may have. Staff recommends that, should the commission approve this request, that the commission place the following conditions on the variance, which are listed in the resolution. The applicant shall obtain a building permit, shall contact the electric and public works departments prior to construction, and that the rear yard setback in this case would have to be 10 feet, like most other properties on that block. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 2020-03, granting a variance from Seward City Code 1510-222 Development Requirements Table to allow a 5-foot encroachment into the required 10-foot side yard setback adjacent to a street on Lot 20, Block 38, original town site of Seward, subject to all conditions in Section 1, subsection F.
Thank you. That ends the administration's report, and I'll open the public hearing on this item at this time. Is there anyone signed in to speak?
There's no one signed in to speak, Madam Chair.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
This is the one with Juanice's house, right? My name's Marsh Gilman.
This is for the house at the corner of Monroe and 4th, across from the Avtech parking lot.
I noticed that a lot of places don't have.
Could, if you, just so we can get it on the recording so that when we do the minutes, we're accurate, could you come to the podium and please state your name and whether you live inside or outside the city limits? Thank you.
Marsh Zachary Gilman. I live at 610 4th Avenue in the city limits. I noticed there's not a lot of curb and gutter all over, and they need so much room to put that in.
Okay.
Been trained to do a lot of that stuff, but I don't do it now. But we just talked about Juanice's, and they said they wanted a variance for that, and like, if they want to put in the curb and gutter and sidewalk and make everything normal, they need as much space as what they say.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else wishing to speak at this time on this item? It's on the variance for the building and the decreasing the setback on the south side from 10 to 5 feet. That's the subject we're discussing. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Juanice Kells, and I live at 603 4th Avenue next to Mr. McEldowney's place. And I just wanted to clarify to Mr. Marsh that this doesn't affect my house whatsoever. I'm just here in support of Mr. McEldowney.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come forward at this time?
That was just all I wanted to say was they need so much room.
Thank you. And we've got that on the record. Anyone else? I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we pass resolution 2020-03.
And I'll second that.
Okay, and I'll give the first opportunity to discuss to the maker of the motion, Commissioner Swan.
Okay, I'm in favor of this. I think the applicant meets the criteria where a variance is applicable. The setback restriction was put in place after the lot was platted, causing this corner lot to have a buildable restriction greater than its neighbors and than the neighboring lot. So, and I think that creates a situation where we should be able to do a variance. Let's see, and then I agree completely with the number 6 of the city's comments here. The request variance is the minimum variance necessary to permit the reasonable use of the property. I agree with that. And the applicant is not asking for greater relief than the surrounding lots already have with the size of building area.
Okay. Any other discussion on this topic? I had one question on the agenda statement. There were some comments from the building department and the public works department. And I don't understand this building department one. Another option could be to look at allowing more lot coverage if the variance to setback can't pass. I believe that wouldn't allow any wider of a building for lot coverage.
Yeah.
Would it? It'd still, I mean, you'd have to go into the setback, right?
Well, maybe. I put what staff comments in there just because they're filling out our memorandums.
Right.
Passing it on to you. But I think that what the building department was suggesting was just that. Like, the office residential zone currently has a 50% lot coverage criteria, and so what he's getting at was that, well, if there's some reason why, you know, the setback doesn't go through, maybe look
Okay.
into increasing the lot coverage, but
That wouldn't allow a wider house. And right now,
Square footage.
No.
the house, if we follow the code, it as written and don't give a variance, it would be a 15-foot wide house, which is really similar to a trailer house. And if we allow the variance, it's a 20-foot wide house, which is my house, and I'm comfortable in my house. So,
I have one other comment.
yes, Commissioner Swan.
Just to respond to the comment made from the
Mr. Marsh?
Mr. Marsh. The sidewalks are all on city property, and they don't interfere, or they're not involved with this setback. This is their private property, and sidewalks don't go on the private property.
Thank you for that clarification.
One other
Commissioner Ambrosiani.
comment. Just thank you for all the documentation, information that was provided.
Fantastic.
It certainly helps understand what's going on a lot better.
All right. Let's take a roll call vote on Resolution 2020-03.
All right, roll call vote on Resolution 2020-03. Swan?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ambrosiani?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
And Chair Eklund.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-03 is passed and approved.
That moves us on to the second public hearing of the night, which is Resolution 2020-04, granting a conditional use permit to Sockeye Point Marine Services Limited Liability Corporation to construct and operate a bunkhouse on Tract F, 4th of July Creek Subdivision, number 2, within the Industrial Zoning District. Staff report, please.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Commissioners, before you tonight is a conditional use permit application, Sockeye Point Marine Services to construct and operate a bunkhouse on the aforementioned property. The parcel is approximately 43 acres in size. There's a property image of it behind you, so you can see. You may well be familiar with that property because of the prominent crane and sawdust pile. Anyway, it's a 43-acre property. The proposed bunkhouse, it'll be located approximately 180 feet from the east property line, so that's there closer to Nash Road. The parcel currently contains a warehouse, vessel storage and repair operations, and bulk materials storage in the form of that large pile of organic matter. The proposed bunkhouse structure is being relocated from the north slope where it served as an employee bunkhouse for oil field workers. It includes sanitary facilities, laundry, and common areas. The applicant has stated that the proposed structure is intended to be used for year-round housing of transient workers in the marine trades. There is a floor plan layout and several photos of the bunkhouse that start on page 38 of your packet. The neighboring properties are zoned industrial and resource management in this area. The area to the north includes the Nash Road right-of-way and then the large city-owned property known as the Mount Alice Bench. The parcel to the east is a vacant city-owned 30-acre lot, and to the south is approximately 70 acres of privately owned vacant land zoned industrial. Water and electric service are available on site. Since the proposed housing structure has been previously used on the north slope, it includes features that make the structure self-contained, including a 2,000-gallon wastewater holding tank and integrated into the plumbing system. And the applicant intends to contract with a septic pumping service for the wastewater removal of this bunkhouse. The applicant has provided additional information about the project also on page 38 of your packet. The applicant has already contacted some city departments to inquire about what their requirements will be for connecting to municipal services and for building safety. City staff have reviewed this project and have made comments regarding their department requirements. Recommended conditions of this permit proposed in the resolution include working with city departments to ensure that the structure is compliant with city regulations. Public notice was provided in accordance with Seward City Code, and no public comments have been received on this item. The applicant is present and available to answer any questions the commission may have. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 2020-04 to grant a conditional use permit to Sockeye Point Marine Services to construct and operate an employee bunkhouse on Tract F, 4th of July Creek Subdivision Number 2.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open this item for public hearing. Is there anyone signed in?
Madam Chair, there is no one signed in.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this resolution? Mr. McEldowney, please come forward and state your name and your address for the record.
Charles McEldowney, Wilma Avenue, just outside of town. I would support this resolution. I've been going to public economic meetings for 30 years, and employee housing has always been at the top of the list. We recently had a public meeting on how to increase the marine industry's viability in town, and employee housing was one of the first things mentioned. So anything that we can do to continue getting the local businesses employee housing, I would say is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McEldowney.
Madam Chair, if I may, during commission discussion, I also wanted to mention that our fire chief is here to answer any questions that the commission may have, and also to speak with the commission
Yes,
regarding this
I
project.
can
Just
imagine
wanna
there'll
make
be
sure.
quite a few questions for administration
Thank
and
you.
staff at that time.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bacalon.
Tony Bacalon, Inside City Limits. I'd also like to speak to support this. While we were in Juneau this last legislative session, there was an interesting report on how mixed uses could be allowed in certain areas, and how those things could pencil out and be financially and economically viable. I'd like to congratulate the company for thinking of ways to think of solutions, like the wastewater holding tank, which will not put a strain on the wastewater out there and be pumped out, which we saw could be an issue out there, and hopefully we can address in the future. So as we look more towards the future in density and finding more uses for the SMIC and industrial areas, I'd like to speak in support of this, and these are my comments only, not those of the views of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item at this time?
Yeah, my name's Rob Vanderbrock. I'm one of the partners with the Sockeye Point Marine Services. So I've been working up on the slope for 35 years, and have lived in similar places up on the slope. So you know, we use them. This one was just taken set aside just in the last couple of years. So it was in service by the MagTech personnel up there, which their leadership actually use that as their own personal bunkhouse. So they felt comfortable in using it up till this point. So.
Could you'll be here for when we open up discussion to answer any
Yes.
questions? We could bring you back up to respond to questions at that time?
Can
Would
I
that be
ask that
okay?
question?
Go- Can you
I can wait.
till discussion, till we put the motion on the floor? And then we can touch
Absolutely.
it? Thank you, Mr. Season. All right, anyone else wishing to speak on this item at this time?
Tim Jagelski II. I live inside city limits. I think we have like 3 main points. JAG has, we've grown from 8 to 110 employees. We're really struggling from employee housing. Right now we're bouncing from fish house to fish house. It's starting to get rare. And we know how it is during the summer. So this is, we've never had this many employees or this much backed up work. So it's really going to hurt us if we start not having facilities like this. Another big thing is I manage most of the Coast Guard work out there and around the country, and we have missed out on 2 major Coast Guard projects because of this specifically. We run some Coast Guard projects where we do sewage work or we do electrical work where we have to shut down the ship. And so just in town here, over the last 3 months, I believe we've averaged about 45 Coast Guard guys throughout the hotels. And then on a 3 meal a day plan with the different restaurants around town. So that alone, if you do the quick math, you're putting another $500,000 into the town just in food and hotels every month. And so to miss out on even one of those contracts is huge. And we know that we've at least missed 2 just because of that. And then recently the Alaska State Trooper boat we lost by $7,000. And part of that factored in there was just the housing for the people that they were gonna have up here while we managed that project, plus our employees, you know. And, you know, the electrical's a little different mess, but that has been, housing has just been, you know, absolutely unbelievable to find here. And it's had a huge impact on us, so something like this could, you know, not only fare well for the city, but JAG. So, all right, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing no one, I will close public hearing and bring it back to the commission for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2020-04.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Ambrosiani, second by Swan. Commissioner Ambrosiani, you want to discussion?
Start. Well, I do want to hear from the fire chief because, you know, we're hearing two really important sides to this issue, and we knew it would come about eventually. Because the need for housing in the SMIC area, you know, with the building programs out there was bound to happen. But how do we keep people safe out there is one of our other concerns, and I really want to hear what kinds of options we have for keeping people safe out there. And then, you know, what are we going to talk about? Are we going to limit the growth of housing out there? And if not, then how are we going to police and have infrastructure for it?
Okay. Did you want to bring the fire chief up at this time and
Sure.
have him address the questions that you have? All right. Please state your name for the record.
Clinton Kreitz, Fire Chief.
Commissioner Ambrosiani.
So I did read your letter and saw your concerns that there were roughly 7 to 8 miles from the Seward Fire Department. But my questions would be, as far as like housing goes, what's the nearest housing to where this hotel would go? For lack of a better word.
Bunkhouse.
Bunkhouse would go.
Nearest housing, meaning City of Seward housing?
Yes, that would be covered by the fire department. So how close do you have to go to this now to cover our service area?
So SMIC is all city-owned, so that's obviously our property that we cover.
Mhm.
But Nash Road is not. There's a slight portion we could, but there's no residences really per se in the City of Seward on Nash Road.
Okay.
So as
It's
soon as
all
you
on
leave the
other side,
bridges,
all on the
you're in
north
the
side.
borough, so that's all Bear Creek.
Mhm.
We go down Nash Road until we hit mile, Jack or Andy may clarify that. It's
I'll just
6.
clarify, I think for us, it's like Sawmill Creek, east of
Right.
Sawmill Creek, which is the McDonald property, which is south of Nash Road primarily. There might be, and then there's some houses right before you head up the hill.
Yeah, just a couple
There's
right
some,
there.
and which is
Yeah.
all in city limits,
Yeah.
and you cover those for fire?
Yep, we do. So then you're looking at another about a mile further for this project. The fire department, and I'm totally on board with the staff, fully recommend we do bunk housing, that we have employee bunk housing. JAG is a great addition to our community. It's just, my concern is just throw up some caution flags first and kind of slow down a little bit. We need to make sure we're following our building codes that we've adopted, our fire codes that we have adopted. The housing project itself is a great idea. It's just, let's consider where it's at. Let's consider our response times, not just for the fire, but also our volunteer ambulance. So just to give a history for the audience, the Seward Volunteer Fire Department and the Seward Ambulance Service is 100% volunteer, other than 2 or 3 paid staff on the fire department. So you're depending on volunteers to get up at night at 2 in the morning to go on a chest pain call, a fire call. They've got to come to the station here in the city, get the fire truck, and then drive it all the way over there. So that was my concern, was thinking most of our fatalities occur at night when people are sleeping. That's nationwide. So it's one thing having JAG or any other businesses running during the day, because you've got people awake and they're watching each other, right? You could see if a fire happens. It's another when you got 20, 21 people asleep and a fire happens, and then a fatality can happen. Even with smoke alarms, which I highly recommend everybody have smoke alarm. things can still happen. So it's just my suggestion that we address these things up front. IBC recommends, or not recommends, IBC states any facility that you bring in, if I brought a home from Nikiski and moved it to Seward, it has to now meet Seward's code, current code. So it's the same thing with this bunkhouse. Just because it was a bunkhouse on the slope does not mean it meets City of Seward IBC IFC code. So that was something we wanted to make sure that the investors knew right away before we did this whole project, that there's going to be requirements that they're going to have to meet to make sure that it conforms to our city codes that City Council has adopted. Such as fire alarm systems, sprinkler systems is one that we're going to have to see. We've not been given all the plans yet, so I haven't reviewed them. But you as a commission and the council can require sprinkler systems and fully integrated fire alarm systems. That would at least buy some time, and at least buy some time for the occupants if a fire was to start. I also suggested in my letter some first aid training and AEDs, maybe an AED place there. Just trying to buy some time. And that's our biggest concern.
So let me ask, the smoke alarms, for sure, carbon monoxide alarm, are the sprinkler system, is that required per code in a bunkhouse? Or is that just a recommendation you're making?
It is over a certain number of rooms.
Okay, did you see the plans?
So we saw a basic plan, yes, and as of right now, they are just under the limit.
Okay, and then a question on, currently, we do have fire equipment of some sort on that side of the bay. What is that fire equipment?
Right now, it's a 75-foot ladder and pumper combination called a Quint. There's nobody stationed over there permanently or full-time, and my nearest volunteer does live in Nash Woods. That's one person, and that person is a full-time police officer and may be on duty. So again, it's us here in town having to drive out there. So.
Okay, and did you see the packet? I don't know if there's a full packet.
I reviewed it.
On page 35, there is a hydrant map, and it states that there's, all those hydrants are in service?
They are.
Okay, and so the bunkhouse is near some of those hydrants?
Yep.
And
No, that's perfect.
that
We don't have an
pumper
issue with
truck
that.
that's over there could attach
Yes, it
to
can.
one of the hydrants? Okay,
Sure can.
all right. Any further questions for Chief Kreitz?
And again, we fully support this project. We just want to make sure that they're aware up front that the building department, fire department are going to require certain conditions where on the slope it may not have been required. We have a certain snow load, wind load requirements for the building department aspect, egress. There's some things that they may have not had to deal with on the slope. I worked in the slope as well and stayed in these myself, so I know that they're a little different.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
And we may have other questions as we go through the discussion. Commissioner Swan, you had the second. Did you want to add anything to the discussion?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I think this is, we just, after the Polar, we just went through a conditional use permit for the Polar Seafoods, and they're using tents, and we made it a point that this is the last year we're going to let them have tents, and now we have some people in the same position that are doing fixed bunkhouse, which is exactly the direction we would like to see going. I do have some additions to the recommendations. I agree with the recommendations that staff has put forward, but I do have a few changes I'd like to make to that. We want to go over that now, or do we want to discuss the main topic before we go over some of the conditions?
Let's go through the conditions you want to add, so that if we bring up the members of the application that are in the audience, they could address them, the practicality of those recommendations. What page are you on?
I'm on page 30.
Page 30?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
So on number 7, where we have animal and bird resistant dumpsters, I wanted to either add bear and animal or take animal out and put bear, because I want to make sure that, and we've asked this on other conditional use permits, that a lot of times dumpsters are not really bear resistant enough, and that some of the other places have used the bear resistant garbage cans, even though there's several of them. But I'd like to put in a little greater language to make sure that the garbage near this area, because you're in a high bear population area, to make sure that that's a little bit farther on, because we're going to have food refuge, not just construction refuge. So that's the first one. And the second one, number 6, since that whole area is very much an industrial area, and this is going to be housing, I would like to see number 6 read, a green belt shall be maintained between the project and National Road, as well as between the project and the facility operations.
Which facility operations?
Well, they have 46 acres of facility. They have all kind of operations going.
Okay.
So between the project and, so it'd be,
And the other 42 acres?
and the rest of it, so there's some kind of a little bit of a break.
So greenbelt, natural vegetation around the bunkhouse.
Correct.
And so,
What's that mean,
Okay.
a line?
no, no,
Could be as simple as a lawn. I am not specifying it to that extent.
or just leaving the alders.
Look at the alders.
During construction, the applicant shall maintain a natural vegetation green belt between the project, Nash Road, and rest of properties. Rest of property, I mean, or,
You'd like to say it that way?
I mean, the west side of the project, the west side of the bunkhouse? Surrounding green belt. Applicant shall maintain a natural vegetation green belt surrounding the bunkhouse.
That's before.
Okay, surrounding the bunkhouse. Okay. Any other amendments to the recommended conditions? Commissioner Swan? For you
That's it. No,
first.
that's it. I'm
you.
sorry. Thank you.
Anyone else making any other recommendations? Okay. Yes, Commissioner Charbonneau.
Going off the recommendation of the fire chief, should we make sprinklers mandatory for this because of all the number of people in close proximity and the distance to the fire department?
That's
Didn't we do
part
something
of the
along
discussion.
those-
I don't know if the building currently has a sprinkler system, so that might be, we can ask the applicant. It does not currently have a sprinkler system, is shaking his head.
But-
Okay. Commissioner
If I could-
Ambrosiani?
You know, in the third condition, it says the applicant shall work with the fire department on ensuring that adequate life safety systems are integrated into the proposed structure. You know, if we start mandating, and who are we to mandate what gets a sprinkler system and what doesn't? You know, it's really up to the fire department to ensure adequate life safety systems. I don't know that it's us.
I'd like to speak on that.
Commissioner Swan?
And I agree with that completely. I don't
You
think.
agree with me?
Yay!
I agree with that. I don't think it's our place to get into the building code and the fire codes. I mean, they have nationally recognized codes for these things, and we, unless it's in some extreme case and that we think that there's, you know, an additional interest, you know, issue of forest fires or, you know, some other aspect, but I don't think that occurs in this case.
Madam Chair, can I
Commissioner, yes.
Just to
Director
remind the
Wild.
commission that we have in the past over at SMIC made it a recommendation and one of the requirements to have sprinklers specifically because of the life safety. We did that with the Hamilton project. It was added to the CUP.
Could you remind us what the Hamilton project was?
So
What does it
it's the large-
house?
Yeah, it's the large boat repair that was over 3 stories. And
The connexes?
It's not connexes, it's a brand new building that's being erected. And then they also had areas that could be possibly for living. And that process, when it came to us, we did not request sprinklers, but during the conversation, it was recommended and put in the recommendations to add sprinklers because of the distance that for life safety. In the case that down the road, when they do have housing in there, it would be protected.
I remember the discussion that evening, and I think parts of the building were going to be used for boat repair,
Boat repair. and-
which
yeah.
would require welding equipment or possible torches and items that are more combustible, and I believe that was why I would have voted for it, not the distance, since we already have the distance to the McDonald's as a coverage area. So I remember that reason. Yes,
So just the hazard itself doesn't necessarily quantify. I'll give you an example. Catalyst Marine's new facility, tons of welding going on, and as large as that building is, does not require sprinklers. It doesn't have sprinkler systems in it. It's just under the square footage. And I think, like Ms. Wiles is alluding to, is we're outside our normal coverage area. You know, normal response area, you should be, statistically, you should be 4 to 6 minutes response time. So that's what IFC and IBC are looking at. They're looking at unfortunately, they don't look at rural departments. They don't look at Alaska. They're looking at the lower 48, and they're looking at a typical fire department with paid people. They can get there, and in 4 to 6 minutes, whether you have, this person needs a sprinkler or this person doesn't need a sprinkler, because the firemen are going to get there and they're going to make a rescue. But this is outside the box a little bit. I think one thing I would caution would be, I agree, you don't want to meddle with code. You don't. But code was written in blood. I hope we all understand that. And they get away with these, 16 rooms or 20 rooms, doesn't have to be. And then now we have 20 16-room bunkhouses, right? So we don't have to sprinkler them. Why build a 40-room one? I have to sprinkler it. I'll save money and just build 20 10-room ones. So I caution you on that. Until we are able to have services across the bay, it's a life safety thing that I'm concerned about. Again, your decision, we're going to stand behind it, and we're going to follow the code and require whatever it requires. But you do have the option of requiring extra life safety for each project. Sorry, Mr.
I recognize them. Commissioner Space.
If I remember you in your initial presentation, was that this structure actually does fall short of the requirement, like maybe one room or whatever. But the point is that there has to be a point where you need it and where you don't need it. So I trust you.
I guess I'm in support of the resolution as written. I understand the fire chief's recommendations. My hope is that we get a fire truck or fire personnel closer to the response area over there, because it is growing and it is going to keep growing. As we said, the Hamilton project is supposedly going to have people living over there. So again, that was approved. We did put sprinklers in it, but it was because it was a mixture of industrial and living. This is a living corridor, so I'm not in favor of it making the additional fire sprinkler requirement at this time. I am in favor of the, whatever the code requires for a building this size. Additional comments? Commissioner DeMoss?
I'll also comment that I am in favor of the resolution as written. I would like to say thank you to JAG for being here, for taking the responsibility of housing your own employees. And I also believe that they are in a critical position right now where they will have to send staff homes in a matter of weeks if they don't have housing. So I think it's the fire department's final call on the sprinkler system. I don't think that we can even debate that. I don't have that sort of education. And I support the resolution as written.
Thank you. As we have already added a recommendation that we haven't voted on yet, really?
We did.
We did
Well, we're
vote
gonna
on-
put them all together,
Right,
discuss it, and
okay.
bring it back.
So,
So I guess we could-
the addition of the added green space around there is, that's an addition that is not required by code. So we can, as we did with the Hamilton building, added the fire sprinklers because of the mixed uses. I have a question for the applicant. I don't remember your name, I apologize. Rob. What's the timeline for this to be over there?
Well, we'll be working with the fire department and the city building inspector on getting the set up.
Okay.
We're still in negotiation on the price and getting it shipped down here. It's gonna take quite a few loads to get down here, so.
Okay.
So we're hoping sometime before this spring, summertime, so to get it down.
All right.
Part of the reasons why we chose that location right there on Nash Road is for accessibility, right? So that's away from, as you mentioned, it's gonna be away from all the work activities. It's right off the road, easy access on and off the property. They don't have to go into the compound area where we're actually working, so that was some of the thoughts that we had. Plus the power's right there, the water's right there, so.
Okay. Does the building currently have, you said it doesn't have fire sprinklers, but does it have a fire alarm system?
Yes, it does. It
Okay.
meets the, I spoke with the state fire department, the marshal's
Okay.
office, and they said as long as it's constructed exactly the same way it was constructed on the slope, it's a mobile, they'll approve that mobile.
Okay.
thing.
In the pictures that are in our packet, I don't know if you've seen the packet, are these the actual building that is coming?
That was in it just earlier this year when we
Okay.
walked it.
All right, thank you. Yes, Fire Chief Kreitz.
I want to make one comment, just make sure we're clear. We're a deferred agency. The state fire marshal has no jurisdiction.
Right, we understand.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're clear that just because something was approved at one point,
By
it still has
another
to have
entity.
planning and zoning and
Yep.
planning and review in Seward. I've heard that twice now, and I just want to make sure we were clear that it has to meet Seward current adopted codes.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make that
All
clear.
right,
Thanks.
thank you. All right, we have a motion to amend the recommendations. We've discussed any additional ones, and at this time, can we have a roll call on the additions to the recommendations that are in the resolution?
Which recommend-
Yes, I don't have
The
a
bear,
second.
animal, you don't have a
I don't
second
have a
for that?
second on the motion to amend.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Commissioner Charbonneau is seconding it after our discussion.
All right, and
Tighten that up.
I will
Okay.
read the amendments as I've got them down.
Okay.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Swan, seconded by Charbonneau, to amend section F7 of the resolution to delete the word animal and replace with the word bear. And it was also to amend F6 of the resolution to amend F6 to state the applicant shall maintain a green belt, natural vegetation green belt between the project and Nash Road and surrounding the bunkhouse. Is what I got.
Close enough. That's good.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote on those amendments. Commissioner Swan,
Yes.
Ambrosiani,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
DeMoss,
No.
and Chair Eklund.
Yes.
The amendments have passed.
Okay, that takes us back to the main motion, Resolution 2020-04, granting a conditional use permit. Any further discussion on the resolution? We'll have a roll call vote on the resolution.
Roll call vote on Resolution 2020-04 as amended. DeMoss,
Yes.
Ambrosiani,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Swan,
Yes.
and Chair Eklund.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-04 is passed and approved as amended.
That takes us to, we can skip over 8, unfinished business, and down to new business, 9, which is to elect a commission chair and a vice chair, since we just had 2 positions filled. So we are open to new officers. Is there any motion for a recommendation for a chair, nomination for a chair?
Well, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Eklund for chair.
I second that.
Yeah, is there any other nominations for chair? All right, I will accept the nomination. So, are there any nominations for vice chair?
I would like to volunteer for that position.
Any other nominations for vice chair?
I was going to nominate Tom.
Okay, so we have a
He already
nomination
did that.
and an
He beat us- he
acceptance,
beat
so,
us to it.
yeah. So is there any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing and hearing none, I think we have our chair and vice chair, and you can have your little voting things back. Okay, under 9, new business B, set a work session topic for the March 17th, 2020 work session, continuing our comprehensive plan review, land use, and our discussion on the walkable murals or painted crosswalk application process. And let's also discuss whether or not we're going to have a quorum for that work session. So March 17th, it's 2 weeks from tonight. Commissioner DeMoss will be here.
Yes.
Charbonneau, yes?
I will be here.
Ambrosiani, yes? 17th, it's a Tuesday. Basketball will not be playing on a Tuesday. Okay, Commissioner Swan?
Yes.
Commissioner Cease?
I have a doctor's appointment on the 16th, so if I keep behaving over the next
Okay.
2 weeks, the chances are I'll be able to come
All
on
right.
the 17th.
Okay. I wish I would not be here, but no. I wish I would be in Hawaii on the 17th, but I am not going to Hawaii, I know. It was really howling. So, March 17th is good. We had our first meeting on both of these topics this last Thursday. And hopefully we get some more public coming to those. We are, as we have announced several times, you can watch our meetings on YouTube, even our work sessions on YouTube or on the Seward, what's the other?
It's just in YouTube or
YouTube.
on GCI.
Okay, on GCI. Oh, we're on GCI? Live? Okay. Whew. All right. So, is everyone in agreement with those work session topics?
It was crosswalks and what was the other one?
The comprehensive plan review for land use.
So we'll have you guys the map that we discussed, break up the districts, and then we'll have a draft application process
Application process or?
for the walkable murals.
Okay, and are we also going to have a draft survey for the, or is that too soon? For the
the land
areas that we were going to talk to the residents about what they'd like in their land?
You'll get the
Okay,
map.
after the planner gets here and you have more help, okay. Well, there. Okay, on the item 9C, which we removed from the consent agenda item, the regular meeting minutes, it says that Andy was here, but it doesn't say Jackie was here, but she talked. so she must have been here. So I don't know why that little section was missing. It just says also present Andy Bacon, planning assistant.
Oh, no.
So it's probably really a housekeeping thing, but before I sign them, I'll double check that that's in there.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Item D, discussion of presenting a gold pan to our exiting commissioner, Martha Fleming.
Martha Fleming, yeah.
And so we just need to make a request to you for that?
Madam Chair, if you make a request, in the past, what happens is if the commission votes and agrees, then we'll move forward and have that ordered and presented through council.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be a gold
Okay,
pan.
good. So do we have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we got motion by Swan, second by Cease, that a gold pan will be ordered for Commissioner Fleming and presented by council in the future. That takes us to item E, discussion of requesting that the staff.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, you need
Yeah.
to vote on?
Oh, do we need to
the
vote?
gold
Is there
pan?
any objection to the motion?
There's money involved.
Oh, there's money.
Yeah,
Do we need a roll call vote, or can we have a unanimous consent vote?
it's a new business discussion item. Unanimous consent would be fine.
Okay, is there any objection to unanimous consent for purchasing a gold pan for Commissioner Fleming?
If anybody does reject it, they should leave.
Okay, take that from Mr. Cease. Seeing and hearing no objection, it's been passed by unanimous consent. So that now moves us on to new item 9E, the discussion of requesting administration, our staff or administration, move forward with the beach restoration, or what was it called? Beach revitalization. Beach revitalization process is discussed at the work session earlier, which for the public, it was that the next step would be a sample project of putting some
Couple of loads of gravel.
loads
I
of
thought
gravel
we-
or something?
I thought we postponed that part of it because they said that.
Oh,
in
Tyler
April-
could take care of
Just have them
that.
look into
Well,
it, yeah.
that and they,
Thank you.
in April, they were talking about that some of the right people would be in town, and that would be a better discussion to make sure, so we don't step on our toe, make something that. So,
Oh, okay, right.
so since we are
Okay.
just in a discussion here, so, no, I think what I was requesting here was that, requesting staff to move the process forward as far as requesting to the, the flood board to get money for the study. I'm not sure the proper wording for that.
Right. That administration draft, or that administration write a letter to the Seward Bear Creek Flood Service Area Board requesting funding for a beach revitalization project. Coastal engineering project. Yeah, and And I think what we'll get back first is a couple of quotes on how much it would be before it gets approved. Okay, is that a motion or is that just a discussion? Just a discussion.
And give us direction.
Okay, thank you. So, item 10 is informational items and reports, no action required. Yes,
Well, before we
Planner
move on
Bacon.
from that agenda item, since we are discussing the beach revitalization project, could I just add for your discussion that you may recommend that staff place a couple of test piles pending approval of this, agency meeting, that they're gonna talk to the Army Corps rep and make sure it's all on the up and up. But that way,
We don't
I
have to
think
come
what,
back to
I
it.
think what Parks and Rec Director Florence was wanting was just some backing from the commission, that would be something that you guys desired.
Good.
And so you may
Since we're
also-
still in discussion, I would like to add that to that same process.
okay.
I would like to encourage Park and Rec, I think I would like to have this body encourage Park and Recreations to move forward on that sample project. Would that
I'll
be-
second that I would agree that a sample test project would be helpful in determining how the final project may fall out. So that's my second. Is there any discussion?
My only point on that is, as long as it doesn't need approval by the engineers. I mean, that,
We're gonna talk to everybody in April when they're down here to make sure it's okay.
okay.
We're just,
And also, we talked to the
Army Corps of Engineers.
Army Corps of Engineers that's responsible for this, and he said, as
Above
long as
high,
we're
high
above
line.
high,
Right.
we can do whatever we want. And
And-
that's all I'm saying is if he says we can do whatever we want up there because that's city land and this and that, if it naturally goes down there by the natural process that happens down there, then that would be fine. And since that's already been happening, I just think that we ought to try that.
Well, I'm just, my concern is instructing staff to do something that we just have a verbal
Correct.
well,
okay on it.
I
I'm a
thought-
little concerned of that. Should we really be moving forward on just that?
Commissioner Charbonneau?
I thought we were, the way it was worded, we were instructing them to, after they talk with them on April, that they have we would like
Our
them to go
back.
ahead
Okay.
We're just
Our
encouraging.
backing.
Once they talk to them and make sure that everything is on the up and up.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
not to go ahead.
ground truthing and that,
Okay.
Can I add?
Commissioner, Planner Bacon.
Thank you. I'm going to be attending permitting day, and I could work with Parks and Rec Director Florence to make sure that, you know, that does happen. We don't want to do anything that isn't on the up and up.
That's what I
We're working
wanted
on
to
this
hear.
big project. We could even go so far as to, you know, come up and show this gentleman representative from the Army Corps of Engineers, you know, where we propose to do it and see if they just kind of
Good.
nod their heads.
Okay, so, motion second. Any objection to unanimous consent? That we are recommending they do a test. Okay. So that takes us to 10 informational items and reports, no action required. Is there any one of those items you'd like to highlight?
I just want to highlight Chill It's a Drill for March 25th between 10:15 and 10:45. It will be a test. It should be heard everywhere, but I just want to put it out there so.
For 30 minutes, we're going to hear a fire or an alarm? Okay. All right. No.
30 minutes?
No, it's the chill, sometime within that time frame.
Within
They're going
that time
to.
frame. They're not going to tell you exactly what time. You just need to know
Okay.
10:15 and 10:45.
So our calendars are in here. We have the work session on the 17th and our.
6 o'clock, right?
Yes, 6 o'clock. And then our next regularly scheduled meeting is April 7th. Okay, commissioner comments? Commissioner DeMoss, do you have any comments at this time?
I do not.
Commissioner Swan? Vice Chair Swan?
Thank you for your confidence in me. My comment to staff is in April, I might not be in town.
Okay, possible excuse. Commissioner Charbonneau?
I, like always, would like to thank the planner and assistant planner for this lovely packet and the public that came out for this meeting in support of these resolutions.
Yes. Commissioner Cease?
Wow, congratulations for another term,
Thank you.
and congratulations to you, Tom. I'm glad you guys did it and I didn't, so.
Commissioner Ambrosiani?
Just thanks staff for preparing everything and thanks for your input. We really need it to make better decisions.
I second.
And I am really happy that we did get public here to comment on the resolutions tonight. It's always helpful in making a decision to have that input. And thank you for the great staff presentation, Planner Bacon. Nice job on your first time running the whole meeting. And Community Development Director Wild, did you have something to add?
We're talking about great packets. I just want to put it out there that your April meeting may not be printed. It may be on iPads.
Yay!
So we're going
Computer,
to,
Gary,
we're
computer.
going to get away from killing all these trees.
Oh,
We're good with that.
And
look
so,
at this picture, look at the trees.
so
Okay,
we're
okay,
going to,
okay, we're
we're going
reducing it.
to do some training, but our goal is to provide each of you with iPads. It's really great that the clerk worked out that we're getting the ones that council had. Council's been upgraded. We're going to have those. It will have a program on it. You guys can make minutes and notes on it as you need. But it's a really good direction, and I'm really excited about it. So we'll still provide packets for one commissioner for 1 month.
I don't even know what an iPad is.
Well, we'll
You're
teach
gonna
you.
learn.
We'll teach you.
The Borough Commission, we've had worked off of iPads for a couple of years, and there's always paper packets available alongside and the agenda items. So for people that want some
And our
paper,
goal
they can.
is to move away from these maps to putting them on the big screen, so that will also be happening.
Thank you. At this time, we have citizens' comments. Any citizen wishing to speak, limit to 5 minutes per individual, and each individual has one opportunity to speak. Do we have anyone wishing to speak? Councilmember McClung.
Tony Backlot, Inside City Limits. My views are of mine, myself, not those of the council. I'd like to thank, again, Liz DeMoss for joining Commissioner DeMoss for joining the dais. Congratulations to Tom and Cindy for your appointments in the commission as well tonight. I think that sometimes I disagree a little bit with what the fire chief said about code being written in blood, because we know those are living and breathing documents that can always change. And as we see more development across in SMIC, I know that this is things that we as the council are going to have to look at for life and safety. But I just want to congratulate the businesses that are looking forward to providing those kinds of housing, and giving that relief towards town, and taking that off of year-round housing in other places that maybe I could use. But anyway, I just want to thank you all for your very hard work on the commission, and like I said, I would take everything that was said with the fire chief tonight too as well, back to council, and maybe on the next council agenda where we can discuss something about that, because I think even in the summertime with the tent housing and that, we might have to look at some, either maybe more funding in the fire department to have people on call, and maybe that would provide some relief and more steady help for somebody that could get over there quickly to assess the situation or provide some help. So I'm hopeful that we can work together to figure out a solution for that, while encouraging businesses to still look towards solutions without thinking that code and the city is working against them, rather working with them and trying to find solutions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please state your name and inside or outside city limits for the record.
Tim Jagelski, Inside City Limits. I'd just like to thank everyone for your kind words and the consideration of everything tonight. It really means a lot for us as we continue to grow with you guys. As I said earlier, we've added over 100 people in the last year and a half, and we project we could potentially add another 100. We're coming up with ways to add airbag systems and other things over there. So this has been one of the scarier things for us, is not having employee housing, and so it really does mean a lot. And I'd like to add, even though it's pretty unofficial now, that we would be super open to adding fire suppression systems. Like, we've built them in hotels, we build them on the boats all the time. So that's something, we want to keep our guys as safe as you guys want to keep the community safe. So that's something we would not have an issue with. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else in the public, I'll bring it back to the DS for Commissioner Administration response to citizen comments. Anyone wishing to speak? Well, I will just thank you both for being here, and for the Jagelowskis bringing their business to town and operating the ship lift in the industrial area over there. And I hope that the council can look into some help with fire safety. I know some cities do eventually have to go to a split volunteer paid staff. And of course, that'd bring more people to town and we'd have to have more housing. So we just keep moving forward with more housing. And I will make a comment that the school basketball team is coming up on their last few games up in the valley this weekend, and then they will be going to regionals after spring break, which spring break starts Friday, and all next week the kids will be out of school and hopefully doing a lot of fun things around town and traveling. So with that, is it? Yes, Commissioner Swan.
This, and I should have brought this up when we came up with one of the things we talked about from the APA meeting. And I noticed with you in the last couple, 3 meetings, making very clear facts and findings. And that's one of the things they talked about up there that I think that we've been a little bit lacking in. And one of the reasons that I made some of my statements the way I made them state was that it's really important for us, especially in controversial things, to not only say why, what our vote is, both positive and dissenting, why, and make them their facts and findings, and we really should. And I noticed that you have been doing a very good job of that over the last couple meetings, of at the end of it, making sure that those facts and findings were clearly stated, and I appreciate that. And I think that's one of the areas that we all need to work at to do a better job of.
Yeah, it's especially important if we go against the recommendation from staff and they've given all their reasons to do something, and if we don't agree with it, then we really do need to come up with findings of why we are turning something down. But hopefully we can continue to find ways to say yes. And I'll take a motion for adjournment at this time. Motion by Charbonneau, second by Ambrosiani. We're adjourned. If anybody wants this on the coast, I have one at home. It is